What do you say, everybody? Welcome to WNSP. It's time for Monday Quarterback. Mick here as we talk about Alabama and Mercer, that 52-7 victory for the Crimson Tide that leads them now to an 8-2 record at Oklahoma this week, and then the Iron Bowl next week in Tuscaloosa. So Bama with two games that are winnable, but two really tough games to try to finish this season up and possibly make the college football playoff. So on the show today, we're going to talk about Alabama's performance, getting a chance to see not one, not two, not three, but four different quarterbacks in the game. And all of those guys kind of left you with a good impression. We're going to get into what the college football playoff race looks like right now and what the SEC championship game race as well looks like. Alabama, of the two lost teams with Texas and Texas A&M at the top now, is in position to get there. Now, how's that going to change when they play a one-win Oklahoma and a one-win Auburn conference team? So much can change. What if Vandy beats Tennessee? I mean, there's so many different things that can happen. What if Tennessee upsets Texas A&M? So we'll get into that as well. But it's great to talk to you guys here on WNSP in Mobile and get into some college football. We do this every Monday through college football season from 12 to 1. All right, so Bama played in Tuscaloosa in one of these games that, I mean, really the only thing you can say about it is that it was a scrimmage, even though it wasn't a scrimmage. But, I mean, in actuality, it was a very easy test for Alabama, playing a team that's an entire division below them. But in the ball game, we got to see Jalen Milroe start at the game, played through the first drive of the second half, and still trying to find that deep ball accuracy, but was 11 of 16 passing, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. That's a quarterback rating of 91.8. And then on the ground, 6 carries, 43 yards and a touchdown. And you wonder if, I saw him when he left the game after scoring that touchdown on the first drive of the second half. Is he banged up? And I know there was some speculation there. Hopefully not, because Bama's going to need him at 100% for the next 2 games. But then the rest of the quarterback room got in the game. It was Ty Simpson, 5 of 10, 71 yards. He made a really athletic play running as well, and ended up going 2 carries for 14 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Then Austin Mack came in, threw an excellent touchdown pass, 2 of 3, 39 yards. And then Dylan Lonergan came in, and he was really accurate, 5 of 6, 23 yards. And as you kind of move down the pecking order, and when the game gets out of hand, they do kind of hold back on what they're going to allow you to do, because it's, final score is 52-7. And what you don't want to do is embarrass your opponent. And that's never been the way that Alabama's done it. They've never tried to go out there and score so many points that these teams don't want to show up. You get a lot of players in the game. It's hard to tell those guys, hey, you don't try, because it's their opportunity to kind of show off and give people a bird's eye view of what they bring to the table. So that's certainly something that we saw in this game, where those guys were able to come in and sling the ball around, and that was exciting. And I think Alabama has a very strong quarterback room. They also have a 5-star quarterback that is committed right now, Keelan Russell. And Bama, who last week had the number 1 recruiting class, has lost 3 players in the last week. So part of that is just the way that this business works right now. Other teams are probably throwing NIL money at these guys. Bama's probably asked to match. And if they don't, then somebody else is going to swoop in and get them. And, that's why they're trying to get you to do the Yay Alabama NIL. And then who knows? I mean, you also have to have money for the transfer portal. And you're seeing right now the parity in college football, because it's becoming a business, and it doesn't really matter I'm sure a lot of us, if you're getting paid, you're going to go where you're getting paid. So if somebody offers you more money, you're going to go there. I mean, that's kind of how the world works. And now all of a sudden that's how college football works. Now, for years, that wasn't the way that it was. It was amateur athletics. But along the way, it became a, billion-dollar business, and they weren't paying the players. So, they were using the money for a bunch of other stuff, but it's hard when your coach gets paid 10 million and you're the one out there, star player, and you're not getting paid anything, so I don't know. It's a broken system. Don't get me wrong. but the, the Saban discounts, what they used to call it, it doesn't exist anymore, so for Alabama to keep these guys, there's NIL's a part of it. Comfort's a part of it. What they are going to be able to do on the field. I'm sure for some of these guys, they're looking at the way that the season's going, or for whatever reason it is. Some of these guys are jumping ship. Alabama will replace them. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't really even matter as much as it used to. I mean, sure, you want to have a top-notch recruiting class, but you can go out there and make up for a lot of these guys with transfers. And those guys actually a lot of times have more experience. So it takes less work to get them there. I think you want a combination of both, right? Anyway, Bama rolled in the game, and you expected them to. But there's really been a shift in this team since they lost to Tennessee. And you can really feel it now. Going back and looking at the Missouri win, it's actually a pretty good win for Alabama. Missouri lost a really fun game to South Carolina, but they can play. Bama shut them out 34-0 after the Tennessee loss, and then they went to LSU and beat them 42-13. I know LSU lost to Florida on the road, but Bama dominated them, and then they beat up on Mercer 52-7. And really, the attitude's been for Alabama: we're going, you either show up to get it done or don't, or go home. So you're playing two of the teams at the bottom of the SEC in Oklahoma and Auburn, but you're talking about an Auburn team who has been in a lot of these games and has lost late. And you're talking about an Oklahoma team that has good players, has star players, and it's on the road, 6:30 on Saturday against Oklahoma. So the SEC is kind of interesting, the way that it's starting to ship and shape up right now. And we're going to talk more about that coming up. But just kind of going back over the statistics in the football game, I thought Alabama did a really nice job of, and I kind of called them out on this a few weeks ago after the Tennessee game. I said the three things that Bama's going to have to do to run the table is they're going to have to be disciplined. And I meant penalties, and I meant, obviously the stuff like, I'm Kendrick Law. I'm getting a personal foul on the final drive when we're down, and we got the football, and instead of having a manageable fourth down, we make it 4th and a mile, right? I'm talking about the, just the Malachi Moore stuff at Vanderbilt, like, hey, get it together, leadership, discipline, and then try to cut back on the penalties, and I thought they've done a really nice job of that. I said, I thought Milroe had to run the ball. He's run it. Against Mercer, you really don't have to worry about him running it as much. I thought Alabama's offensive line could have done a better job. He was still under pressure a lot from the Bears, but took care of business anyway. And since he's been running the ball, Alabama's been a much better team. And then the other thing, and I've talked about this too, is third downs. And I thought that third downs again this week, Bama did a great job. And I think that's what it's going to take for them to win. I mean, you look at the third downs on defense, Mercer was 1 of 9 on third downs. As a matter of fact, Mercer with only 202 yards, and the touchdown they scored was really an amazing catch that you have to tip your cap to. Bama offense on third down was 8 of 15. That's very good. But then you had that 3 of 3 on fourth down, and that was great. It was a great showing, 508 yards. So this team is doing those three things better. And all of a sudden now you're seeing this team start to come together. You're getting the vibe that, hey, this Bama team has the potential to get to Atlanta. Do we want to get to Atlanta? I think we do, but I want to talk about that as well, and not right now. I kind of just want to recap this. On defense, Bama's been doing an amazing job of enforcing turnovers. They got 3 more in the game, including a fumble that Zabian Brown ran back for a touchdown. So these are the things that these opportunistic defensive turnovers and the third down conversions and the discipline that you're seeing from Alabama. Bama got 29 first downs against Mercer, and the Bears got 10. Now, that's what should have happened, right? I mean, Bama's clearly the better team, but just because they're clearly the better team doesn't mean that it always happens that way. I mean, look at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's nowhere near as bad as Mercer or talented as Mercer, but they also lost to Georgia State. And then Bama, wasn't prepared to go in there and beat them. They lost. And think about how the season would feel if they hadn't have lost that game. You'd feel a lot better about it, even with the way that they played against Tennessee. Not just that they lost to Tennessee, but the way that they played against Tennessee. So, well, I'm going to go over the other games in the SEC, and then we'll look at the standings when we get back. But Alabama right now, according to a lot of the people that are crunching the numbers, have a real good chance of getting to the SEC title game. And, my prediction was Bama versus Texas at the beginning of the year in the SEC title game. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I know some of you guys do. So we're going to chew on that and more. Thanks for hanging out with us here on Monday Quarterback on WNSP. Mick Gillespie and Jay Coker. More of the show coming up right after this. Welcome back to Monday Quarterback here on WNSP. I'm Mick Gillespie. Thanks for hanging out with us and talking Alabama football. We're here every Monday through football season from 12 to noon talking about the Crimson Tide and the SEC. So thank you guys so much. And don't forget that every Saturday game day, you can hear the Bama Tailgate show right here on WNSP from 9 to 11 with Jake Coker and me, and Taylor Hicks is on the show now, and it's fun hanging out with him, and a lot of other great guests each week as we preview the Alabama Crimson Tide. And this week, Oklahoma will actually be at Pearl River Resort in Philadelphia, Mississippi, to record the show on Friday. So if you're in the area, swing by and see us at the Dancing Rabbit Golf Course or Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. All right, let's talk about Alabama, and let's talk about the week that it was, or the weekend that it was in the SEC. Bama handled business 52-7 against Mercer, right? So that's what you expected. They played the game that you thought. Ryan Williams had a couple electric plays in there. You got a lot of guys in the game. It was cool to see Rico Scott score a touchdown. The touchdown pass from Austin Mack was excellent as well. So everything that you wanted to get a look at what the quarterback room in the future would be for Alabama in that game. Now, the rest of the SEC was in action as well. And when you take a look at what we got going on there, we'll start with some of the other games in the conference and then where that led us, because I thought it was a really good weekend of football. Watched Texas and Arkansas. It was exactly the game that I thought it would be. Arkansas could have beat Texas had they just played a little bit cleaner football, but they lost 20-10. So Arkansas still hasn't gotten that quality win yet, but their schedule has turned out to be pretty weak. They struggle, but they win at Arkansas. Tennessee and Georgia, I'm going to talk about that one at the end. Texas A&M pounded New Mexico State. LSU got beaten by Florida 27-16. Brian Kelly, I think, kind of feeling some heat from LSU fans. But that team that he's got is, you got to say it, guys, it's just really hurt right now. I mean, they're missing a ton of players. When Alabama played them 2 weeks ago, the injury report was like 10 deep, and it was a lot of really good players. And I know we don't accept excuses, but they lost 27-16 to Florida. Florida scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to win that football game. And you got to give Billy Napier a lot of credit, too. That team hasn't quit. Auburn over Louisiana Monroe, 48-14. Auburn now 3-4 at home and 4-6 overall. So they still have to win a couple of games to be bowl eligible. And they have Texas A&M coming up and then Bama. And then Kentucky 48-6. Kind of in that same exact spot, 4-6 on the year, and 2 games left for them to try to become bowl eligible. Now, The other two games I wanted to talk about, South Carolina, 21st ranked team coming into the game, Missouri, 23rd ranked, and they played, I thought, one of the best games of the day. South Carolina won 34-30. The Gamecocks have all of a sudden started to put things together. They're a really interesting team now at 7-3. Missouri 7-3 as well. And I didn't think Missouri played poorly in the game. And they're dealing with some injuries. South Carolina just keeps getting better every week. They even beat Texas A&M. So we'll keep an eye on them. The Clemson game for them at the end of the year is going to be really interesting. And then Tennessee came out like a house of fire in Athens, Georgia. And if they would have beaten Georgia Saturday, they would have knocked them out for the most part of playoff contention. But the Dogs, with a really inept offense, found a way to score some points, throwing some passes to Delk, their tight end, a couple times for touchdowns. And they came from behind, solid defense, and they beat Tennessee 31-17. And then, now both teams have two losses in conference. So that leads us to kind of the most interesting part of all of this, and that's the SEC conference standings. So right now you got Texas at 5-1 and Texas A&M at 5-1, but they play each other last week of the season. We finally got that, that Lone Star State matchup. And for the first time in the SEC, this game's going to be for a berth in the SEC championship game. So then after that, you got Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and Ole Miss with two losses. Now, Georgia's 6-2. Obviously, Bama's got two more games. Tennessee's got another conference game. And Ole Miss has a couple more conference games, right? So Georgia's the only one that is already in the clubhouse, right? They've got their 8 games in. They're 6-2, and then they'll sit back and watch. Tennessee plays Vandy. Bama plays Oklahoma on the road and then home against Auburn. So those are two tough games. And then Ole Miss plays at Florida, and then they play Mississippi State. So that at Florida game's not a gimme. You found out what happened to them. LSU can tell you they've gotten better, but I think these are two games that you expect them to take care of. What happens if it's a 4-way tie? Or wait a second, no, the loser of the Texas A&M Texas game goes in there as well with two losses. So one of those two teams will be there, and then the other one will be in a 5-way tie if everyone wins out. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how all of this goes, right? And I'm still trying to do the math here. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. There's different scenarios, and but from what I understand, Bama has a really good chance of going to the SEC championship game and playing in Atlanta. And a lot of people have said, well, why would you want to play in that game? Because the bottom line is, if you lose, you might not make the college football playoff. If you said, hey, I don't want to be there, then, you could probably already be in, right? That's a problem that these conference championship games are going to have. Are you going to count that loss against the team that, that loses? Say if Alabama goes up against Texas and Texas wins, are you going to keep Alabama out of the college football playoff? And I think there's a lot of people that don't want that. Now, I look at this list, and I can tell you right now, Texas, let's just say Texas beats Texas A&M, right? A&M would want to go to Atlanta and play for that championship game. Ole Miss has never been there. They'd want to play. It's been a long time since Tennessee's played for an SEC championship. So for those fans that don't want to take the risk of playing in the championship game and think that it's a bad idea, I disagree. I mean, last year, Bama won the SEC championship. It was the highlight of their season. You get a championship ring for that. It goes into the records. Obviously it's something that's out front of the stadium. It's a big deal. And now that the conference is 16 teams deep, it's going to be even tougher to win those. And there were years where Alabama wasn't playing for SEC championships. Now, I know some of those had to do with, with obviously dealing with scholarship sanctions and some bad coaches and some other stuff. But at the end of the day, winning a championship matters. And if you get the opportunity to do that, you should want to do that. And I hope that's the mentality that this team has. If you win the SEC championship, you get a week off, and then you're a high seed going into that to the, I guess what I would call like the bowl game aspect of it, not the first rounds on campus sites. But I want to see them there, and I think that should be the mentality, and it really feels like this team's motivated to defend their SEC championship game. But I would love to see a Bama Texas A&M matchup in Atlanta. I think that would be cool. All right, that does it for this segment of Monday Quarterback right here on WNSP. When we come back, we're going to talk more SEC and Alabama football. We'll get into a little bit of that matchup between Alabama and Oklahoma. More coming up. Welcome back to Monday Quarterback here on WNSP in Mobile. Mick Gillespie with Jake Coker on assignment, talking Alabama football. And we do this every Monday. And we do it right here on our local radio station. We appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with us as well. You guys might recognize us from the Bama Tailgate Show. And we appreciate all of you that hang out with us every Saturday right here on WNSP. From 9 to 11, we preview every single Alabama game. This week, we will be for the Oklahoma game show at Pearl River Resort with our friends in Philadelphia, Mississippi. We'll be hanging out at Dancing Rabbit Golf Course and at the Timeout Sports Lounge at Golden Moon Casino. It's like a Vegas-style sports book where you can make your picks count. That's where we'll be. And then next week for the Iron Bowl, we'll record the show like we do every Friday from 1 to 4. We will be at Innisfree in Tuscaloosa. That's always a great scene. So if you're in the area, swing by and see us. We've had some of you guys actually come and hang out, and we appreciate you so much for being part of what we do here. So thank you. And also, we're on Cover Crimson on YouTube, the Bama Tailgate channel on YouTube, and Cover Crimson on YouTube as well. Jake and I do Elephant in the Room, a podcast that normally drops twice a week where we talk Alabama as well. All right, let's get into what's going on right now as far as the college football playoff. And I think this is really cool. They have like a likely college football playoff predictor, right? So teams that can make the college football playoff. And right now, as of, 2 weeks left in the regular season, Oregon, who's number one in the country, 100% chance to make it. How about Indiana? Is 97%. They haven't played one team that gets any votes in the top 25, but they're undefeated. And so apparently they're getting in. Ohio State, one loss this year. They're probably the best team in the country, at least the best team in the Big Ten. They've got a 95% chance. Texas, 94% to get into the college football playoff. Bama at 71%. And Tennessee at 66%. Just kind of looking at this list right here. And then, obviously they'll update this thing as the season goes on. But it's pretty interesting to kind of look at this and say, they got Georgia at a 92% chance to make it. And I guess that's after beating Tennessee. They're going to play Georgia Tech. They're not going to lose to them. They're pretty much in. I guess that's saying that if they make the college football playoff or the SEC championship game with 3 losses, that they're going to get in. Ole Miss, 62%. So right now you got Texas, Georgia, Bama, and Tennessee as 4 teams in the SEC that would get in. I wonder if Ole Miss would be that team left out. Last week, it was Georgia that was the team when they came out on Tuesday with the rankings. They had Bama playing Indiana, and they do that every Tuesday, as I mentioned. And then they had Georgia being out. But Georgia's win over Tennessee is certainly going to put them back in the mix. So the top 25 came out yesterday. Not the college football playoff rankings. That'll be Tuesday, but the AP and the coaches poll. And Bama is on the rise. Oregon got a late score at Wisconsin to beat the Badgers. Bama went in there and crushed them, but Wisconsin put up a pretty good fight against Oregon. But Oregon now 11-0. And they got every single first place vote. They got 62 in the AP and they got 55 in the coaches poll. So they're the undisputed number one team in the country. They beat Ohio State by 1 point at home, and Ohio State's 9-1 this year. They're number 2 in both polls. Texas is number 3, Penn State number 4, and Penn State up a spot in the coaches poll. Indiana number 5. Now we're going to see what Indiana at 10-0 looks like when they play Ohio State. That's this week, and I'm looking forward to this game. I just want to see if Indiana is. To me, I just kind of feel like they're one of those teams that has had the luck of a schedule. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but I'm just saying that they haven't played a schedule. If you don't have one team on your schedule that even gets votes for the top 25, then you really haven't played very good teams. Bama's beaten 4 of those this year. So they're number 5. Notre Dame all of a sudden is getting that Notre Dame push that seems like happens every year. They're up to number 6 right now. They came up 2 spots in the AP and a spot in the coaches poll. Bama is up 2 spots in both polls to number 7. Georgia, after having that colossal fall with their loss to Ole Miss, is up to number 8 in the AP and up to number 8 in the coaches poll. And then Ole Miss, who ironically beat them, is now behind Georgia somehow in number 9. And then Tennessee, number 10 in the AP and number 11 in the coaches poll. So those are the interesting teams. Texas A&M 15-14 in the 2 polls. South Carolina 19 in both polls. They're a really solid team. They're fun to watch too. And that kind of does it for the SEC. But we'll find out on Tuesday when they announce the college football playoff rankings. When that happens on our channel, the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel, will actually be on YouTube live talking about it as it happens. But it's interesting, it really does matter. Now, last year we saw Alabama. We kept saying, hey, no, Alabama's going to get in if they went out. They're going to get it when they went out. And then they ended up they were 8-8. They couldn't get past 8. And then when they beat Georgia, they put them in. And it was controversial, but look, they played. They deserved to be there. They played Michigan right down into overtime and lost. And I think if Alabama would have had a better mindset going into that game, I think they would have won it, right? So they're one of the hottest risers since the Tennessee game, and it's not just that they're winning, but they're winning with style points. And I even maybe that's not a good term, style points. They're taking care of business. They're getting turnovers. They're dominant on defense. They're moving the football and scoring on offense. Jalen Milroe has been on the attack in those 3 games. So they're turning heads, and then they're getting some help. I mean, a lot of teams are losing, and this to me is one of the toughest years I can remember in the SEC. Because you're talking about a lot of teams that can potentially beat you. I mean, think about this. Tennessee's lost twice. One of those losses was to Arkansas. Kentucky has 1 conference win. That was at Ole Miss. And Ole Miss is one of these teams that's recognized as, as a contender for the playoff. Bama lost at Vanderbilt. And I don't even think that's that bad of a loss. Texas's best win is a 3-point win in Nashville against Vanderbilt. So it's a year where the conference is very deep. And if you don't go into these games playing your best football, or if you're not focused, or you don't have a great game plan, or you make mistakes, you're not going to win. And I think that is, it's something that you're going to see obviously continue with NIL and transfer portal and rosters, that you don't necessarily have to be a big recruiter or be someone who has had a ton of success recruiting or as a head coach. I mean, with the right amount of money, you're going to have a pretty good roster. And it really has balanced things out a little bit more than we're used to seeing. But that's where the top 25 is right now. The other question to me is some of these other teams. You're saying, according to the ESPN indicator, that Oregon's going to get in, right? Ohio State's going to get in. What about Penn State? You're putting all of these you're putting all of these teams in. And, what about teams that have played tougher schedules? Notre Dame, Notre Dame's a team that people kind of have this nostalgic feel for. They play Army, which they've already beaten up on Navy when they were undefeated. They play Army, and then they play USC. So those are two very winnable games. Army ranked 24th right now. And one of the real fun stories in college football is Army. There's actually 7-0 and 9-0, and they're ranked 24th. What if Army beat Notre Dame and then beat Navy? I mean, can you imagine that? With them getting into the college football playoff? I mean, that would be a ton of fun. They're 17-point underdogs to Notre Dame coming in to that matchup. But that's just something to keep an eye on. I mean, what a story that would be. But when you look at the way that this college football, kind of this bracket looks, and the way that these games are kind of falling out, and exactly who's going where and what that means, for Indiana, if Indiana gets blown out by Ohio State, which I think is a very realistic possibility, I wonder what that's going to look like. Are they going to be like BYU? BYU lost, they fell 7 spots, and all of a sudden now Boise State, who lost one game to Oregon, is a team that is going to get one of those at-large bids, and that could be an at-large bid that a Tennessee or an Ole Miss isn't going to get, because they're one of the reasons that they expanded to do this college football playoff the way that they are is to get these teams in. They want to have some of these. They want to at least have one of these Cinderella type teams get a chance. The other team that's interesting to me is Deion Sanders' team, Colorado, and they've been sneaky good. They're what are they, up to 8-2 now, and have a chance to win their conference. So, all of that aside, it's been a really, really interesting run. And I guess just, from the Alabama standpoint, they're going to have to keep winning, or, one trip in these next 2 games, and they're not going to make it. Hey guys, I want to tell you that Monday Quarterback is brought to you by our friends over at Sticks Tractor and Tree. They're in Robertsdale, Alabama, right there on County Road 68. And Hunter and those guys do a great job. I had them come into my backyard and help clear some trees out. One in particular was in my deck, and it was a water oak. I always had a bad feeling about this tree. It was over 70 feet tall, and I thought that this thing's going to fall on my house if I don't get it out of here. He came in, brought the big green machine. They did it basically a one price deal, got all the trees out of there. They didn't mess up any of my property, my deck, or anything like that. None of the trees fell on my house. And that tree actually had, it was hollow in the middle. I mean, really hollow. Like, there's no telling what storm would have ended up knocking that thing down, but it was on the way out. And so having it removed was fantastic. But they do a lot of different stuff over at Sticks Tractor and Tree. They're great guys. You can count on them to get the job done. You can trust them for fair pricing, whether it's land clearing, excavating, mulching, tree work, demolition, site prep, all of that stuff. That's over at Sticks Tractor and Tree. So, call those guys at 251-367-1081 or find them online at stickstreeservice.net. But when you go out there and you're saying, hey, I want to get this done, and we need some, we're getting some quotes, give them a chance. And I promise you're going to end up really appreciating the work that they do. All right, final segment of Monday Quarterback right after this. Final segment of Monday Quarterback here on WNSP from noon to 1 every single game Monday. That's why we get like the Monday Quarterback. You saw the game. Here's what happened. Pretty nice win for Bama, 52-7. And that's 3 straight weeks of dominance. Can Alabama handle success? I think that's the big question as they take on Oklahoma. And that'll be on the road in Norman coming up on Saturday. Let's take a look at the SEC schedule, what to expect this weekend, and then we'll look at some of the big games around the country. Mentioned that Bama 8-2, 4-2 in the SEC against Oklahoma, 5-5, and 1-5 in the conference. Bama on the road, a 14-point favorite, 47.5 the over-under. So Bama goes to Oklahoma. The Sooners with just a disappointing season, but Will Venables, their head coach, got the vote of confidence, and I'm surprised. I mean, I tell you, I can't imagine Alabama being 5-5 and 1-5 in the conference unless they were on probation. And Oklahoma, kind of the same, type of very storied history as Alabama, but obviously they're trying to figure out what they're going to do head coaching wise. I guess they're going to stick with him for another year. Ole Miss, a must-win for them at 11 a.m. on Saturday at Florida. They're a 9.5-point favorite on the road against the Gators, coming off of a win over LSU, 55.5 the over-under. Gators 5-5, 3-4, and Ole Miss 8-2, 4-2. This is a same exact thing for Alabama. How do you handle success? You took care of Georgia. Now you got to go in and take care of Florida on the road. That's a job too. I wonder for Lane Kiffin if it doesn't circle that. His name's kind of been bandied around as possibly the successor over there at head coach for the Gators if things don't turn around. So I'm sure that's one, if it's true, which I believe it is, that he'll want to win. Georgia against UMass, that'll be a massacre. Tennessee against UTEP, that'll be another massacre. How about this one? Texas hosting Kentucky. When the SEC made this schedule for Texas, they couldn't have made it any easier, and they'll have another easy win over Texas heading into Texas A&M. Not sure why, because it feels like Oklahoma's had a bunch of tough games. Texas playing Kentucky. Yikes. 20-point favorite at home, and that would put them at 10-1 and 6-1 in the SEC going into that game against Texas A&M. And if they win this, I don't know if they're a lock to make the SEC championship game, but they take one step closer. South Carolina against Wofford. They don't even have a line on that one. Arkansas plays La Tech. 22-point spread there. Terry Bradshaw's not coming back to lead Tech. I'm looking for Arkansas on that one. Mississippi State hosts Missouri. Good bounce back game. Missouri wins that. They're 8-3 on the season and 4-3 in the SEC. And Mississippi State's 0-6, looking for a win. It's only an 8-point spread. Missouri's an 8-point favorite. That's kind of puzzling to me, but I think Missouri's going to have a big game. Auburn hosting Texas A&M. This spread, the Aggies are just a 2.5-point favorite. It's a 47.5-point over-under in that game. Very interesting matchup. And then how about this one? Vanderbilt, 6:45 on Saturday, SEC Network, goes to Baton Rouge to play the Tigers. LSU's a 9-point favorite. 54.5 is the over-under. I'll tell you what, Vanderbilt's still not getting any respect, but that's going to be a lot of fun there if the Commodores play like they did against Alabama and Auburn. I mean, I can't imagine LSU losing another game, falling 6-5 and below 500 in conference action. And if Vandy wins that one, they'd be 7-4 and 4-3, and it'd be quite a turnaround for their program. And then finally, mentioned this one before, 6:30, Bama at Oklahoma. And, a must win if Bama wants to get into the college football playoff. They just got to continue doing what they've been able to do. All right. Now, other games to keep an eye on this weekend, 11 a.m. right out of the chute. Indiana 10-0, 7-0 in the Big Ten, taking on Ohio State. That's 2-5. Indiana's having maybe the best year in school history of football. Ohio State is a 12-point favorite, 51.5 is the over-under. I just can't see a scenario where Indiana beats them, but they could have a moral victory. If they play them tough, then that's going to help them get into the college football playoff. If they get run out of the building, Indiana could end up losing their spot in that playoff. So even at 97%, that changes drastically if they get hammered in that game. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens there when those two teams get together. Just kind of scrolling through, Colorado 8-2 with Coach Prime, 6-2 in the Big 12. They play Kansas. I really would love to see Coach Prime, Neon Dion getting to the getting that team to the college football playoff. That'd be interesting to me. That's a 2:30 game on Fox. That's one I'll definitely be watching as well. And, and then the Army Notre Dame game. Army 9-0, Notre Dame 9-1, 8 versus 24. That's in South Bend. And it's a 17-point Notre Dame favorite, 44.5 over under. I mean, if there was just one time that Army could pull off the amazing upset, can you imagine? People would have to, if the Army beat Notre Dame, then all of a sudden you're going, hey, man, that Army-Navy game could be for a chance to play in the college football playoff. How awesome would that be for our, for the cadets, right? Anyway, guys, thank you again for hanging out with us here on Monday Quarterback on WNSP. Appreciate it so much. Check us out online, Bama Tailgate on YouTube. We do shows every day covering Alabama. And then we swing back here on radio every Saturday from 9 to 11 to preview Bama with the Bama Tailgate show on Bama football weekends. And it's we got a lot to talk about. So hang out with us again and check out Jay Coker and me on Elephant in the Room. That's on the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. We do that show twice a week. And again, if you haven't checked it out yet, listen to your radio here and then swing over and catch additional Bama coverage there. But appreciate everyone for helping us put this together. Tim and Clint and the entire crew over at WNSP. For Jay Coker, I'm Mick Gillespie. We will talk to you again next week. Until then, have a great week, everybody, and roll Tide.